Hi everybody, I'm Jennifer Tryon. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching on the replay, please leave me a comment below that says replay. That'll really help me out to know who's watching live and who's watching it once you've seen it on your feed. It also really helps me if you will like it and share it. That way I can do tons more of these videos. And today we are making shorts. Lots of shorts. I have been making shorts, cute little shorts, practical shorts, shorts with fabric I love, long shorts, short shorts, you name it. We've been making shorts around here. And there's no better time in the drones of summer to have a few extra pairs of shorts that you can use up some of your stash and be creative in the process. So what we're doing today, if you didn't join us, not last week, but the week before, we made t-shirts. So be sure to go back on this feed and take a look at the t-shirts live, because we're making shorts and t-shirts in our summer sewing series. So thank you for tuning in. Please let me know where you're watching from today. I'm always loving to know where people are tuning in from. I am just outside, I'm in Toronto, in the suburbs of Toronto. And so where are you tuning in from? I'd love to know. Olga, do we have some people tuning in?
Yeah, we have Melissa from Plantalia, Florida.
Awesome. Hi, Melissa.
From Wisconsin.
All right, we've got Wisconsin, we've got Florida. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I totally appreciate it. Last week when we did the t-shirt sewing, I said you can make a t-shirt in under an hour, and we totally did. And now today we're going to make shorts, hopefully in under an hour too. And I've trimmed off a little bit of time because I've already gone ahead. You can see I've cut the shorts out already. So you can see I've got the back, which is the larger portion cut out, and the front portion cut out. This is the pattern we're going to use. It's the Schools Out shorts from Peekaboo Patterns, and it's a really easy pattern to follow. This is the only pieces you need to cut out. I'm making these in a size 12 for the girls, and so basically what you need for this project is some knit fabric. So Funky Monkey Fabrics has a little deal for you, 10% off knits until Friday. So take advantage of it now, because you will need some great knit fabric. You can use woven too, but knits are just so much comfier for shorts because you can really kind of, move in them. And you're going to need some double fold elastic. So this is going to maintain its stretch. Unlike bias tape, which would be very hard and like rigid if you were to sit down in it, this acts just like bias tape, but you can fold it, see? And it has like a ridge in it. It's meant to be folded, and that's going to act as the trim around these shorts. And then you basically just need basic sewing supplies, scissors, some pins. I'm using these clips to hold on to the, instead of pins. They're little Wonder Clips. Wonder Clips, Crafter's Companion, Threaders makes these clips too. There's lots of these clips, but I love using these instead of pins for something big like the trim. So if you have any questions along the way, just type them in. They'll shout them out and I'll try to get to them. Otherwise, you can message me later on social media. So cut your pattern out like I've done here. I used a rotary cutter and ruler on a cutting mat. And I find that that is the easiest way to cut out patterns versus trying to use scissors. Because when you use scissors, I find it just it lifts the fabric. You don't get as clean of a cut. So when you're going around it with the rotary cutter, I just find it much, much easier. So get your pattern cut out, choose your trim, and let's get started. If you're going to follow along on the Peekaboo Patterns, they've got a full tutorial. Lots of easy instructions to follow. Okay, so you're going to lay down your back piece, and this is pretty much the rule for making all shorts or all leggings. Once you start sewing clothing, you'll realize it's sort of the same thing over and over, and you'll get pretty good pretty quick. So I would just encourage you to try sewing with knits, or try sewing something that you're going to wear or your kids or grandkids are going to wear on like an easy pair of shorts, because if they're not perfect, who cares? They're still good. All right, so you line this up, and I'm basically going to bring this seam here to the serger. So today I'm using the serger and the cover stitch machine. When I used the cover stitch machine for the t-shirt live, I used it a ton. For these shorts, I am going to, sorry, you want to make sure you have right sides together and that they're mirrored, because one side is right, one side is left. And don't be fooled, you might be thinking that you sew the two sides that are the same size together, but really you don't. You're sewing the two opposite sides, the front and the back, together. So today I'm using the serger primarily. I'm going to serge all the edges, and I'm going to put the trim on with the cover stitch machine. And I'm going to do it in just a single stitch, like a chain kind of stitch, and it's going to allow that to maintain its elasticity and really move when you've got the shorts on. Okay, so I can bring this over to the serger and we'll get started. So you can see here, you don't have to lift. If you're new to the serger, I'll just sort of show you. It's got a knife here that's going to actually trim away the excess and make everything nice and straight and ensure everything lines up. So it's all threaded here. My settings are basically everything is on 3 up top here, in case you're wondering. And my differential feet, it's on 2 and on 1.5. So those are my settings. And unlike a sewing machine, you don't have to lift up the presser foot. I can just bring my fabric over. I want to make sure it's not rolled and lining up correctly. And I can start at the edge of the presser foot. I don't have to lift that up. I can lift it with my thumb a little bit to get it going, and you'll see here along the side how it's cut off that excess and then left me with this nice straight edge all trimmed. And you see now how it maintains its elasticity. If I were to use just the regular sewing machine for that, it wouldn't stretch out so nicely. All right, let's do the other side too. And because this is a knit fabric, I don't need to do all around the edges because it doesn't fray. However, if I was using a cotton or something that would unwind, especially in the wash, you would want to finish off all of your edges with the serger. That way it didn't just come apart on you. It won't come apart on you in the wash. And this pattern calls for a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I don't worry too much about what's coming off because there's lots of room here, lots of room for error. So now you can see we've got a nice strong seam, you can see it there, that also moves with you. So now I'm going to go back over and you can see overhead, I'm going to start attaching the trim. So these are kind of fancy shorts, to be honest. Like regular shorts don't always have this trim, so you might be finished sewing these even faster if you didn't do this step. But I kind of think the trim gives it a little something extra, and even if you are a first timer, I think you could add the trim no problem. All right, I'm just going to cut off a few of those serge tails, and now I'm taking my double fold elastic, and I'm basically going to measure from one side to the other. And I'm going to stop the trim about 3/4 of the way on this side because when these shorts come together, this is actually one leg that you're looking at here. If you're kind of looking at going like, I don't get it. I don't get how that's shorts. This is actually one leg. And see how it's a little bit smaller in the front? That's because this pattern is meant to come over top like this and then the trim comes around. I'll show you on a finished pair. See how the trim's going to come around the front like that? So because I've got daughters, I got to do one in this color with the pink trim and then one in the exact same in the blue trim. That way they know whose is whose and they can match without being totally matching. So To avoid wasting too much trim, I'm just going to start the trim on the front side a little further down because I know this is going to cover it, and then I just don't waste as much material. Okay, this is where I'm going to use my clips. And this is also where I'm going to move to the cover stitch machine once I get this clipped. How's everyone doing out there? Have you guys been sewing this summer? I want to hear about some projects that you are sewing. I know sometimes it's like it's hot and it's nice and we don't want to be in at our sewing machines, but there's so many great projects you can do in summer like this, shorts, t-shirts. This is also the time you're going to want to start. If you're thinking that you want to have Christmas quilts, you got to start sewing them now. This is really a reminder to myself, you guys. Okay, I'm just going all around the edge here. I'm going to bring this little camera in so you can really see what I'm doing up close. And just tucking and folding, see that edge of the fabric into the fold of the double fold elastic. And I'm going to clip it. So I hope you've been following me on Instagram this week because we've been doing lots of photo shoots and getting ready for tons of different things. So I hope you're following me on Instagram. We tried to do a shoot with the other pair of shorts that I had made, and I'm going to take this to the cover stitch machine now. And we're doing it, and the cat would not get off the shorts. So if you're following me on social media, you've totally seen our adventures in trying to get this project completed with the cat in the way. Okay, so now that I'm here at the cover stitch machine, I'm going to show you the settings that I've got this at. So I've got it at 4 across the board, and then at a 3 here on the end. However, if you'll see, I'm just going to show you, there's many different stitches on my machine that you can choose from. But because I want this to just be a single stitch, so when I was doing the t-shirts before, I used a double stitch like this, so I would have this nice stretch on the back of the shirt, and then that twin stitch on the front. However, on the front this time, I just want there to be a single stitch, just like this, just to attach that trim, and with a chain stitch in the back. So it shows me exactly which needle I need to thread up top and in which color it goes to. So you can see up front here, everything's color coded, and that's the thread that I've put it through. So even though my machine takes 4 threads here, I'm only actually using 2. Always one in the bottom lower looper, and it shows you exactly with the green how to thread it. You just follow that right along. And then, because I'm going to use this one here, I'm putting it in through the blue, and again, it shows me exactly how to thread it down through here, up, around, and then behind that little bar, and then you just thread it normally. And then test on a little piece of scrap, and it's surprisingly easy to use. So I know, Melissa, if you're watching, I hope you're going to try to use your cover stitch machine. I know you've been getting the business from some of the girls, but if you have a cover stitch machine, give it a try. It's easier than you think. Okay, so turn it on. I'm just going to lay my fabric right underneath, take off that first clip. And now you do have to do a little maneuvering to make sure that this gets under, and I can see it, and I want that notch right along the inner edge, and then I can put the presser foot down. Let's just get this in here nice and close so you can see it. And just try to stay really close to the edge and make sure your fabric stays tucked inside the double fold elastic. And if you have to re-clip along the way, go ahead. I always do. I keep clipping. I only have, I don't know where all my clips have gone. So I have to like sew a bit, clip, and then take the clips out and then reuse them. So put another clip. How's everyone doing out there, Olga?
Good. So Melissa was asking what machine are you using?
So yeah, so this is the Janome Cover Pro 2000 CPX. And we can put up some links to some cover stitch machines. I find I use Janome machines. They're, you know, great quality, a fairly affordable price for the quality that you're getting. And I've had no problems with this machine. Sometimes you read like horror stories about cover stitch machines, like skipping, but I really have not experienced that, you guys. It's just sewing along. And now let me just show you the underside here so that you really know exactly what I'm talking about. Let me get right in so you can really see. Okay, that's the underside, and this is the above. You barely see the stitch. And then there's this chain. Can you see that chain? Let's see here. This thicker chain stitch. That's the cover stitch. And it's just giving me that single stitch on the outside. And once I pull it off, you'll see how it maintains its elasticity. That it's gonna really, really allow the garment to move. And when you walk or anything like that, it's not gonna get caught. So let me know if you'd like to see a cover stitch come to HSN or to TSC. I've been trying to convince them to bring them because I feel like it's the kind of thing that people see some really good demos, then they might be inspired to go for it because it's such a handy, versatile machine to have. So let me know if you'd be into that. I'm going to be on TSC. I was just on TSC last week with Crafter's Companion. Doing lots of paper crafting. And my next show is coming up September 25th on TSC. That's going to be the Janome sewing event on TSC. And they're going to have a big heavy duty machine on there. I've got it here because I'm going to sew the elastic with it. So if you're looking for a new machine and you live in Canada, this one is amazing. And they're going to have a good deal. So you can see I'm just going along, making sure that fabric is tucked into the elastic. Yeah, to HSN, okay.
Are you coming back to HSN?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. I don't have any dates right now. You guys could start a whole campaign though. I'd be happy to. All right, so I'm just going to sew this right on up to the end and then trim it. There we go. And now you just pull this off similar to a serger where all the threads come off. And now let's take a look. Sorry, I'm going to make sure this is focusing. So see how it's a straight stitch up there. Are you getting a focus? It's so close. And then you also have what looks kind of like a straight stitch at the back, but it's super, super stretchy. That's the kind of thing a regular sewing machine or a regular serger won't do for you. Okay, let's go back over and I'm going to add the trim to the next one. So you can see here now, I've got the trim all along the one side of the shorts. I'm trimming this with my thread scissors. And the other side, okay, so there's one side done. And if you're looking at it as one leg, you can really sort of see it start to come together. It looks like one half of a pair of shorts. And you can see how the little decorative here is going to come over. And I'm going to use the cover stitch machine again to sew right along there. But let's do the other side of the trim first. Let's make sure I'm mimicking it. So I'm going to do the whole way on the back side and then just up part of the front. Okay, let's go to the cover stitch machine. All right, a few clips to get me started. So I just want to remind you that Funky Monkey Fabrics has 10% off knits. For all of you guys that are watching, just use the promo code Tryon Summer 10. And if you're inspired or you want to try making some t-shirts and shorts yourself, you can pick up some great quality knits. When you buy from local retailers like this, smaller shops, you really do notice a difference in the quality of the fabric. So I'd encourage you to give them a try. How are we doing there, Olga? What's that? Sure. So how many people out there have tried, or I want to know who has a cover stitch machine? Have you tried using it? Is it living in the box, or is it something you've always wanted to try? Let me know. I want to hear what everyone's experience has been. There's a few groups on Facebook dedicated to just cover stitch machines and people who are using them, and I'm always reading the posts on there and learning lots of tips. So Facebook really is a great community for sewing, for all things crafting really, because usually people are posting pictures of what they're doing and offering advice, or if you're stumped, you can post and there's surely someone to be on there to answer your questions. I know usually people start with a sewing machine, then they might get a serger, and then that's when they start to wonder, well, what's the deal with the cover stitch machine? Do I really need a cover stitch machine? And you know, it's like the microwave. We call the serger like the microwave. You know, you can totally sew or cook on a regular stove, but boy, is the microwave fast and efficient and easy to use. And it's a good analogy for the serger and the cover stitch machine. I would say the cover stitch machine is more like a Instapot. It really gets like amazing things done that you didn't think were possible at home. That's the way. So Melissa, have you used your serger? Often I hear about people like they buy the machines and then they're never quite sure what to do or what the settings are. But I'd say just get it out of the box. If it's a Janome serger or cover stitch machine, it comes threaded. So right out of the box, you'll be able to get it going.
And Melissa loves her pressure cooker.
Exactly. See how I'm just continuing to put the little edge of the shorts into the double fold elastic. If you're just joining us, we're making shorts, and I'm adding the trim all along, all along the side of the shorts here, and I'm about to stop.
Sarah Tryon.
Oh, that's my sister. Hi, Sarah. She must be sneaking and watching from work. Atta girl.
So Melissa has only used her serger this
A few times. Well, that's what ends up happening when you have these machines and you know, unless you get a big project going that you know is going to be, you know, you're going to be using the serger for, then sometimes it sits for a while. But don't worry, it doesn't mean that it's gone to waste. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have one. It just means that it's so nice to use it when you need it and have it there. All right, so I'm just trimming that edge. So I've got a little bit left over for another project. Let me trim some of those serged edges. So now we've got the other side done, and we can see them really starting to come together.
Debbie said, I'm going to wash this rather than unload groceries.
The groceries can wait, right? I love it. I know. My kids have been saying to me for the past few days, we need to get groceries. Can we go? And I was like, I'm making shorts. Priorities. Priorities, people. All right, you can see how when I turn it over, how it's really starting to come together, right? And don't worry if it feels a little like, ooh, this looks a little uneven. It's all going to come together in the end. Once you sew the crotch part together, everything will start to line up. Okay, so the next step is just ensuring that this gets sewn to the, like on this overflap here. So again, this time I'm just going to use a pin. And I'm going to use the cover stitch machine again. Now, if you don't have a cover stitch machine and you're watching this going like, well, I'd like to make shorts, but I don't have all that fancy stuff, that's fine. You still totally can. You're going to use a stretch stitch on your regular sewing machine. And even the most beginner of sewing machines typically have a stretch stitch. It looks like a little lightning bolt. And that's the stitch that you're going to use for knits. And you're going to want to make sure, if you're using a regular sewing machine for any of this, that you use a needle that's meant for knits. And that's a big one, especially for anyone who's just beginning, because they might think like a sewing machine needle, they're all sort of made the same. They're really not. A needle that's meant for knits actually has more of a ball point on the end. And what that means is it doesn't puncture through the fabric in the same way that a sharp quilting or universal needle does. Instead, the ball sort of pushes the fabric to the side and squeezes its way in, rather than like a really sharp needle that pushes its way and punctures the fabric and just like busts through. So when you sew with the correct needle, you'll have better results. All right, here we go. So I've got this trimmed over, and now I'm just going to sew on the other side. So I've sewn my one stitch on this side, or sorry, my one stitch on this side, and I'm going to sew on the other side to tack this down. Now, I will tell you, when I was making a bunch of these shorts, I sewed over the other side of the leg a couple of times, not just one time, a couple of times. So let this be a warning to make sure the underneath fabric is all spread apart, because you're sewing on that tube, on that leg. And so you want to make sure that all of that underneath fabric is nice and spread out of the way, or you'll be using the seam ripper like I was. Don't run over your pins. And so this part is especially important to have that elasticity, because see how this part here, I want to make sure that's all open underneath. And I'm not going to sew it all the way shut. I'm going to let it open up a little bit just for a little extra leg room. I mean, shorts are meant to be comfy, right? Okay. So now that is all down. Oh, I lost a little up top here. Hold on. I started too low. Let's try again. And see, that's the thing. You make a mistake, check it out, no big deal. You can fix it. Have I come unthreaded? Okay. next one. And if you're afraid or not so keen on sewing with knits and you just have a regular machine, a regular sewing machine, then go ahead. You can sew any kind of woven fabric into shorts too, like even just quilting cotton will totally work. And if you don't have a serger, just make sure you finish your seams with a zigzag stitch. Even the most basic beginner level sewing machines will have a zigzag stitch, the one that looks like the letter Z, letter Z. Okay, so now you can really see the back side of the cover stitch on that white. See how it just gives me that kind of chain stitch, but it's looped around enough that I can really pull it. And now the shorts really move. They have got lots of elasticity. I'm just going to tack down that other side a little bit more. It's fast too. Okay. Let's do a little bit of cleanup here. Cleanup means let's get rid of some threads, because before we start sewing this all together, we might as well make sure all of those loose ends are out of the way. See, we've got lots of threads to trim in here. That's the thing with the serger and the cover stitch. They use more thread, which is why so often you see me using the big cones. But I don't have all of the colors in all of the big cones. I tend to use Maxi Lock and Gooderman thread. But I don't have every single color. I only have sort of like the basics, white and black and navy, gray. So the other day when I was sewing something purple for my Crafter's Companion stuff, I didn't have a big cone of purple, so I just chose a bunch of purple regular threads and put them on the back, and it totally works. So you can get big ones of like the colors that you're going to use most often, like white and black or gray or whatever, and then you can just use regular spools, which are a little less expensive sometimes, for the colors that you don't use that often. Especially if you have to go and buy 4 of them. Okay, so we're all trimmed up. And so now comes kind of the fun bit where we're starting to assemble the shorts. And you want to assemble them, you're kind of looking at this going like, how am I going to sew these 2 sides together? Well, there's a trick. And one side needs to go right side out, like this. And one side needs to go against it, because we always are sewing with right sides together. So I'm taking the right side and I'm putting it against the right side, right at the crotch, and I'm taking those 2 seams and lining them up. Now this is where I can put a pin. And I'm just going to basically put one leg inside the other leg, just like this. Pin it, don't pin it, up to you. I like to definitely pin the seam in the crotch. That way I know it's going to line up nicely. All right, so now I'm going to bring this back to the serger. So you can really see how all of these machines work in conjunction with one another, and how often we're not even using the regular sewing machine for these kinds of things. So again, the serger is trimming off all of this extra, giving me a nice straight edge. Again, this is the pattern for the Schools Out shorts from Peekaboo Patterns. We'll put up a link in case you want to see. They have tons of very easy to follow, everyday, like kind of wearing type patterns. And you can just download them, print out the pages, tape them together. And with a serger, remember, you sew right off the edge. Okay, look at that.
Lakita says you made her interested in sewing.
Oh, that's so nice, Lakita. I hope you take a chance. Do you have a sewing machine? Because at least having a sewing machine is a good place to start. And it is a really fun, well, and practical hobby, because not only will you be making kind of like things that you see on Pinterest and stuff like that, but you'll be mending and upcycling, and there's all kinds of things you can do. Okay, check it out. These are coming together. See how that trim lays nice and flat in the front like that? I like that. That's just a little extra step, but it really, I think, adds something to the shorts, which is kind of nice. I mean, regular just plain front flat panels good too, but these are cute. I'm liking them. I should mention that if you didn't want to just do the elastic trim, you could do something cool, but I didn't have enough, but I wanted to bring it out and show you anyway, is you could lay down the pom-poms. Look how cute that looks, right? To have that little pom-pom fringe go all the way, even if it was just around the front. To be honest, I probably have enough to just do the front. Anyway, we'll see, but pom-pom, love that. Okay, let's do the waistband because that's the last step. And it's kind of its own beast, the elastic band. So you're going to start with your waistband that you've cut out. Make sure that your stretch is going the right way. On your pattern, it'll always show you which way the stretch should go, so this way, and then which way the grain line should go. And the grain line is this. I'm going to bring over the little camera so that you can see it, because it's kind of a big thing in sewing, and it's something that really confuses people. So you can see the stretch goes this way. But when I stretch it, see those lines sort of going vertically? That's the grain line. They're kind of going that way. And when you pull it apart, you can see that they're going up and down. And that's why it's showing here that you want the grain line going this way. So that's how I've cut it out. And that's what I'm using for the waistband. So I've cut a piece of elastic. Basically, about minus an inch or so, the size of the actual, I'll let you look overhead. Just about an inch off of the size of the actual, because I want to stretch it out a bit as I'm sewing. To be honest, I could have had this elastic be a little bit longer, especially because I've got to go and overlap it like this. So now this is where I'm going to come to the regular sewing machine. And I'm using my heavy duty Janome here. This is a great machine for basically all things heavy duty. Well, this is an overall amazing sewing machine, but it really is great for sewing things like denim and leather and like putting the elastic. So I'm just going to go around in a square using the stretch stitch. So in mode 2, I can hold this up. The stretch stitch in mode 2 is stitch number 9.
What type of machine is a good one for a beginner with sergers?
With the sergers? So a great beginner serger, the one that I'm using, is the Janome 4DLB. It's a good price. It lets you do 3 or 4 threads, which is great if you wanted to do like a rolled hem or like napkins or tablecloths or something like that. But it also doesn't break the bank, and it has been really good quality. I've had no problems at all with the Janome 4DLB, and we can give you a link. The Janome, if you live in Canada, this serger is going to be on TSC, and the same with this sewing machine here, on September 25th. I love this big machine. This is, and here's the thing, beginners always think that they need to have a beginner machine. But really, if you know you're gonna like sewing, you're better off getting a better machine to start with. Because so often, and I've done this, is I purchased a very inexpensive machine and then fought with it and thought that I just wasn't a very good sewer. But really, it's the machine that makes you a good sewer. So if you're not having to fight with your machine, if you're able to like do all the things that you want to do with your machine, then you're more likely to sew. You're more likely to have success. So I try to tell people, I know sometimes sewing machines can be really expensive, but if you can swing a better quality machine, even if you could get it used, that's what I'd suggest doing. Because a good quality used machine, I'd say is you'll probably have better luck with than a very, very inexpensive new machine. That's just, you know, that doesn't do much for my sales on TSC, but that's the honest truth. All right, I'm just gonna take this over to the serger because I'm putting the ends of the elastic waist right sides together, and I'm gonna serge along that part right there. And that's gonna create another circle that I'm gonna put this in. So thankfully the serger is going to trim up this end. Gets everything together nice and neat. And now I'm going to fold it, and you can see I used a bit of the selvage because I wouldn't recommend that, but I was just not wasting any fabric. So I'm just going to put that at the back, and honestly the kids don't care or even notice that stuff. So I just say, hey, free inch of fabric, I'm using it. Okay, so this is the part that you're going to have to fiddle with. It's the waistband. The elastic inside is going to be slightly smaller than the casing. So it's going to mean that you have to stretch it out a little bit around the perimeter of the shorts. So I'm going to put this elastic right inside here in its own little case. Here comes Ginger the cat. If you were following me on Instagram stories this week, Ginger has been very interested in making shorts, or at least in interrupting me making shorts. So hopefully you're following me on Instagram. And I'm going to put up a whole blog post on sewing shorts and t-shirts on jennifertryon.com. So if you want to register, put your name in at jennifertryon.com, and then you'll get emailed every time a new pattern like this comes up. All right, so you can see the casing is a little bigger than the elastic itself. That's okay, because once we get it all stretched out, then it's going to fit perfectly. And then when it stretches back together, we're going to have that bit of extra give. So before I could take this to the serger right now and just save a step and go all the way around, but I really want it to lay nice and flat. So I'm going to do a basting stitch on the regular sewing machine first. And a basting stitch is just a really long straight stitch that you don't tie off. And it basically just tacks it in place. And I'm not going to keep it there permanently. It's going to come off with the serging, but it just means that everything's going to lay nice and flat when I take it to the serger. So I'm just going to increase, I'm going to go to just a straight stitch now. So 0, 1. And I'm going to increase the length of the stitch. So, sorry, mode 1, 0, 0, 1. And then I like that this machine has these knobs. You just turn it right up. They're computerized. I'm turning it all the way up to 5 so I can have the longest stitch it will do. And that's a basting stitch. And you can see this machine is very fast. This is the Janome 6650. And it's all metal. It's a very heavy duty workhorse type machine. And you can do everything with it. Quilts, like sew what, like leather, denim. You can like make a boat cover, a barbecue cover. It really does like all the heavy duty jobs. But then also is great for everyday sewing too. It can just take whatever you throw at it, this machine. So I'm just making sure not to sew the elastic. I'm leaving the elastic free in there. All right, and now I'm around to the other side. So automatic scissors, up we go. And so now I've got the elastic completely encased. And it's nice and stretchy, and it's got a little bit of give. And now when I bring it to my actual shorts here, you can see how much smaller the elastic is than the shorts. See? So what this means is we're going to have to stretch this into place, and then that's going to bring the shorts all together cinched at the top. So I'm going to line up my back seam with my back seam, but I'm going to put it almost like around the neck like that. Whoops, I want to make sure this is lined up properly. Whoops, this kind of came undone here. One sec. My basting, this is the thing with the basting stitch, is that you don't knot it off, so it can come out. All right. So I want to sew this right sides together. So to the outside perimeter of the shorts, not the inside. That way when I flip it up, all of the yucky bits are on the inside. Although they won't look that yucky because they'll be nice and serged. And I'm going to serge right over that basted stitch. And I'm going to put some pins, and I'm going to stretch this elastic as I go. I'm going to bring it all the way to this quarter side, like at the half mark. And bring it right over to the serger. So I'm putting the elastic at the bottom, although I could put the elastic at the top. Maybe it'll make it a bit easier to stretch. And I'm going to be trimming off all of that basting stitch. Just make sure your shorts are under there and that you're catching them along the way. And now I'm going to just be stretching this as I go. Can you hear the cat meowing, you guys? Now you're stretching the top, sorry, my arm there. You're stretching the top elastic, not the bottom shorts. Remember that. It's the top elastic that you're stretching, not the bottom shorts. And don't pull it so hard that it comes out. And take a bit of care when you're getting to the big trim part here, because anything that's thicker and bulkier will take a little more maneuvering to go over, although that just sewed through it like butter, so still, be a little more careful with the big parts, the thick parts. So I'm just stretching that. I'm even pulling it a little bit from the back to make sure I'm not pulling on the needle and breaking the needle. What's up, Ginger? What? You want to be part of it?
I'd like to help.
He already sat all over the shorts when we were trying to take pictures of it. And again, make sure you're not sewing over the underneath part because you are sewing in this circle here. And just take your time, get things like stretched out. You really do have to stretch it as you go, or you will be left with a big, big gap. So now we're coming around to the other side. Let's see, we've got a little bit more stretch. I want to make sure every bit gets sewn in. Oh, I missed, okay, look at this. I missed a whole spot there. So that could happen. Just go back over it. I'm just going to start where I missed. There we go. That's better. And now if there's any little spots where you do see your basting strip, you can just go back and you can pull that thread right out. So I see a couple spots here where we didn't catch the basting thread, so I can just snip that and pull them right out. But that's it, you guys. That's a pair of the Schools Out shorts done in, what time is it? Were we able to do it in an hour? I think so. A very, very easy project you can do in an afternoon, even in a morning, and you'll be wearing them all summer long. They're super cute, super easy. I even love the idea of adding like the pom-pom fringe to give it a little something extra. In fact, I may do that because I think my daughters will really like that little extra flair with it. You can find the pattern at Peekaboo Patterns, and it's, again, the Schools Out short. And you can make them in a bunch of sizes. So I've done the short shorts, and I also, for my son, made the longer version. So these are sort of the board short version. Same exact idea, you're putting the trim all the way around. They're just a little bit longer, and they fall for him like just below the knee. And then the girls like the shorter ones. So there's also lots and lots of adult sizes too, if you're brave enough to sew for yourself. Sometimes I think sewing for the kids is like a little bit easier because they're a little less picky, but you could start with kids, and then once you've perfected some of your serging and your sewing skills, then you can graduate to sewing things for yourself. Okay, Ginger, you've been just meowing this whole time. We may as well show everybody who you are. See? Say hi. All right, well, that's it for here. I think Ginger wants to either go outside or get some food. So be sure to be following along on social media. I'll have lots of inspiration posts over the next couple days. I'm going to get the girls to try these on, and we'll take a few pictures, and I'll be posting those too. So thank you so much for watching today. Any final questions before we go? All right, thanks everybody. Be sure to like and share the post. Bye.